Good afternoon and welcome to a rare live Gribbly Spolly Sunday Antisocial Hour. I procrastinated too much and didn't have time to pre-record, so we're just going to do this all live. And I have very little experience doing live streams, so I'm going to be watching myself on my own YouTube channel so I can see your comments as you join because I don't. Oh no, mute. See, every time I do this, it's just crazy. All right. So it's Sunday. We have 100,000 dead people in America from COVID-19. It's also Memorial Day. I'm seeing pictures from downtown. People are sending me shots from downtown, and it looks just like a normal Memorial Day weekend down there. I'm smoking John Cotton's number 3. This is now my third bowl of John Cotton's number 3, and I on the last one I felt, what's up, Les? Thank you for the John Cottons. On the last bowl I felt the perique a little bit, so I'm gonna be chill. I'm gonna be careful. Too much stimulants lately. Too many stimulants on this channel. Which brings us to our first question from Howard, who says, "Ask Gribbs, is the can of Monster Energy drink half empty or half full?" By the way, I'm so flustered I didn't even do the intro. This is the time each week when I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity while answering all of its questions. If you are a piece of humanity with a question for me, leave it in the comments down below with the hashtag AskGribbs. And if you're actually watching live, oh yeah, thanks, Les. If you're actually watching live, go ahead and ask Gribbs, and we'll get to those at the end. Maybe, I don't know how we'll sort that out. Boardwalk, good to see you. So Howard says, "Is the can of Monster Energy drink half empty or half full?" It is what it is, right? Full and empty. These are human constructs that we come up with to apply to nature. It's half empty. Come on. He says, "By the way, your black and white work is awesome. Thank you so much." Boca to Boynton left a really interesting comment on my origin story video. He says, "Don't take this the wrong way, but I would love to have you as a son-in-law, just not married to one of my daughters." So I don't know if he has eligible sons, in which case, they better be pretty rich, Boca. Not saying I don't have a price, but it's up there. Now ask Gribbs, what was Mrs. Gribbs thinking when she said yes? That is a question that I ask myself continually, on a pretty much daily basis, actually. And I guess it was just, either my money or my looks. I don't know. So here's an interesting question. I feel like I'm blowing through these because I don't have the pause button when I'm running live. So I'm trying to, let's see if I can tab back over, see your comments. Okay. Yeah, so if you have a live Ask Gribbs question, I will be able to see it and respond to it. So, tinfoil hat, Ask Gribbs. I think this is the second time I've ever been asked this. I feel like I remember discussing it before. Ask Gribbs, my wife and I just found out we are having a baby boy. Congratulations and hello, tacos. Upon researching circumcision, we've learned that there are men who are restoring their foreskins by stretching the skin slowly over time. What is your take on infant circumcision? Living near a very liberal city yourself, have you ever heard of foreskin restoration? I have not, and against my better judgment, I'm going to open another tab. Foreskin restoration. Devices. Surgery price. Let's do that. Surgical foreskin restoration. An alternative for those frustrated with lack of results, probably of the devices. It's quicker than the stretching route, but costs $8,000. $8,000? Okay, all right, that was maybe a click too far. So I think infant circumcision is a bad idea. I think that we live in a modern society with modern medical care, and that the hygienic reasons for circumcision are um, fairly overblown. That was what we discovered when we researched it. Um, and we there was like 90, like I looked in a lot of different sources, and we asked several different doctors. One doctor came at us with the hygienic stuff, and I was like, that's there's other research that says that's not really the case. And she was like, oh well, maybe I'm behind the times. Like, she wasn't adamant about it. All the other doctors were adamant that it should not be a routine procedure at birth, that it should be something, if a man wants to do it, he should do it later on down the road. Um, I mean, most of the world doesn't circumcise. So talking to other men, some circumcised, some not, I feel like it was 95% against instant circumcision. Well, it's probably better than surgery. 95% against infant circumcision. What's up, Arizona Jim? And the other 5% was like, I'm glad I'm circumcised, and I'm glad it happened before I could remember it. So there you go. That's just what we found. And I am not a doctor, but it is it's an interesting decision you have to make when you're having a boy. Old Greg asks, why do you use the term hydro flask? Is that hyphenated? This is actually a brand of fancy thermoses, I guess you'd call them. Fancy drinkware. I'm going to take a still from that and use it as my influencer profile pic. And I gather that they're enjoyed by hipsters, but this has been probably the best thermos I've ever had. A hipster bought it for me, actually, and it's pretty good. I have a couple of complaints. One, and we'll see if I can make it do it. The lid squeaks when you've got hot coffee in there. You can't hear it. Number two, it's not leak proof. Like, if I turn it upside down, it will drip coffee out. But it's very convenient, other than those two things. And I have yet to find a thermos or a water bottle that I actually think is well designed. So I can live with it. It definitely keeps things hot. That's for sure. And it is not hyphenated. I think they were a thing on Visco. Let's see if there's a Hydro Flask Stereotype. Yeah, we'll click away from the circumcision stuff. Hydro Flask Stereotype. Yes, here we go. The basic bitch of water bottles, typically used by the quirky, annoying girls who say things like, spill the tea. They'll often protect it with their life, despite the fact that it is usually protected by a warranty, and they cover the entire water bottle in annoying stickers. Visco girls love their hydro flask, is how it's used in a sentence at Urban Dictionary. And remember, at one time I called Martin at Overpipe the Visco girl of the YTPC, because he's got all the accessories. Anyway, maybe he needs a hydro flask with some stickers on it. I don't have any stickers on mine. I have standards. So Mindful Pipe. Oh, I replied to this already, but talking about photography and the origin story video, Mindful Pipe says, I take a lot of pictures for my blog, but I don't know anything about photography. I would like to know the basics, and someday I hope to take an evening class or something. The basics of photography are they're very simple. It's not a complicated process. But it's math heavy. You don't have to deal with the math, because we've discovered a series of arbitrary numbers to talk about everything, basically. So you have to be okay learning sequences of arbitrary numbers. But once you get it down, it's super easy. The main thing that gives people problems is the concept of equivalent exposure, and once you get that down, you're more educated than 95% of the populace about photography. I would be happy if anybody out there wants me to do this. I would be happy to do videos on photography basics. So, or one or two videos. So leave that in the comments down below if that's something that would interest you. Our next question comes from John Gallieri. Ask Ribs, what is your favorite 1980s TV show a la The A-Team? Mine was The Dukes of Hazzard or MacGyver. I'm pretty sure it was The A-Team. I can't think of a better A-Team-like show. I mean, The A-Team it had it all. You know, it really did. Everything was involved in The A-Team. And at the time, I basically thought it was a drama. When I was a kid watching that show, I was like, oh man, this is like a real action adventure drama kind of show. And watching it as an adult, I'm like, no, this is a really cheesy comedy. But I think it sort of like it walked that fine line really well for a show in its time. And yeah, I would if there were an easy way to do it, I would go back and watch the entire series. I tried to one time, but couldn't find an easy way. I should recheck. Excuse me, my eye itches. It's allergy season. I'm so uncomfortable right now. This is live streams just make me, well, they just make me talk, as you can hear. I'm just talking and talking, and they just shut up. I'm gonna light my pipe. All right. Boo Lewis Boo. Boo Lewis Boo. Boo's question is, can I use an AR-15 as a studio monitor? No, I can't think of any way you could do that. I was sort of thinking that maybe if you had a steel mag, you could like maybe use the surface of the mag to like vibrate a little bit of sound if you hooked it up right. But I don't think that would work. So I guess that's a no. Oh, okay, here we go. David 35, 445, Ask Ribs. Discuss. It is said that our whole life flashes before our eyes at the moment of death. Could that flash be in fact what we consciously experience as our entire existence? Are we all just existing in a split second? Damn, I sure wish we hadn't legalized weed. So this is something I think about quite a bit. I don't really believe that time is its own thing. I think that time is just a measurement of movements, and it is the medium through which our consciousness moves. That's how it seems to be, right? That we are moving through time, and we watch ourselves age, and we watch things happen in time. But what if consciousness is itself the origin of time? Consciousness creates time, because otherwise there would be no way to experience things that happen in time. Does that make sense? Like, your house burns down, and then 10 revolutions around the sun later, a tree falls on your car. Why am I thinking of terrible life events? And then you get married, and like, how do you experience all of those things when they happen so separated from each other in space? Because the Earth is moving, and then we're moving through space, and then space is expanding. Time is just the thing that like connects all the stuff that we can observe happening, or it doesn't even connect it, and we invent it to connect it. So I think it's entirely plausible that the flash of your entire life going before your eyes is like you're shocked out of your consciousness, basically. Like if something really scary happens, and your body goes back to fight or flight, or just a huge adrenaline dump maybe, and the part of your brain that invents time is turned off for a second, it's like everything compresses. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I should know, being a level 50 shaman, but I don't. David 35445 asks Gribbs, have you ever watched Slaughterhouse 5? No, I read the book. Hang on, got a call. I read the book. It's Vonnegut, right? I was never into Vonnegut. Let me make sure I haven't missed any comments. Seven are watching, and only one has liked it. You guys need to like the hit the like button there. I don't know why. It seems like it might do something. Slaughterhouse 5 is, I'm pretty sure, is Vonnegut. That's the one about the aliens, isn't it? Or The Children's Crusade, Duty Dance with Death, in a science fiction infused anti-war novel by Vonnegut, 1969. I read it a long time ago. Yes. Yeah, okay. Billy Pilgrim, I remember that. The work has been called an example of unmatched moral clarity. I have never seen a movie. Is there a movie? So, and I think that I read this right around the time I read Rudy Rucker's White Light, which is a cyberpunk dystopian novel about math, and and I think I've gotten the two confused actually, because it's a science fiction book, but all I remember is like World War II and then aliens, which is interesting because aliens did sort of make an appearance during World War II. I don't see anything about a movie. Theatrical, yeah. Well, anyway, let's go back to your questions. Vonnegut Short Stories, says Boardwalk, had the book of his shorts and magazine articles. Maybe I just need to read more Vonnegut because everybody talks about him as like this visionary author, and isn't he like a rabid anti-Semite? Hang on. Let's find out. Didn't he like and later in life become kind of like Bobby Fischer, just like a really weird? He was okay. So he died in 2007. Born raised in F, part of his training. Don't care. Later in his career, man without a country. After his death, he was hailed as a black humor commentator on Society. Well, I don't see anything about him becoming an anti-Semite conspiracy theorist. So cool. Death and Legacy. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, I'm not finding anything about that. Okay. Should I read Slaughterhouse 5 or should I watch the film adaptation if there is such a thing? Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right. Hey, 2 people hit that like button, and now there's 9 of you. So we're like a net. It's a net status quo. Come on, give me the likes. Howard. Senile Speaker of the House refers to POTUS as morbidly obese. Don't you just love it? I don't think he's all that fat. Like, he's fat. I get that. I gotta look at that. He's definitely fat. He's definitely in the obese range, but like, aren't we all? Like, he's not, you don't see him riding around on a Walmart scooter. And more likes. Thank you. Appreciate that. So that's just Pelosi playing into the personality drama that is the modern American politics, where we have these figures that we can like or hate in the same way that people like soap opera characters or hate them, or professional wrestling or whatever. It's basically professional wrestling for out of shape people, with, I guess, fewer folding chairs. Although sometimes in press conferences there's folding chairs everywhere. Anyway, yeah, I mean, Pelosi should not be criticizing anyone based on their appearance. Now, I understand. Sergi, yes, and I'm going to learn how to pronounce your name in a minute, and you should go back in time because before you got here, I just proved that time is not even a thing. Anyway, um, Nancy Pelosi should not be lecturing anyone on their body image. Now, I guess from a perspective of like, well, you're the president of the United States, you're at a high risk, you're in the high risk category for this bug. Maybe you should be careful. But I mean, come on, if y'all think he was actually taking hydroxychloroquine, then no White House doctor is going to prescribe that to a 73-year-old man in Trump's shape. That's not unless he already has COVID and insists. But I mean, we're talking about something that's like, to be a clinical trial, you have to be at death's door already. So I think they were, yes, Mr. President, here's your hydroxychloroquine. It's a sugar pill. But whatever, Pelosi should. God, I wish we didn't have Pelosi. Anyway, and now the Biden thing, man, like it's exactly what people like me in 2016 were like afraid of. It's like, oh, well, we're going to get 4 years down the road, and then we're just going to do this all over again, because the Democrats can't. They can't break out from their mold any more than Republicans can break out from theirs. Oh, here's another one that's going to require a Google search. See, all the all the prep that I normally do is going to be done right here in front of your very eyes. Mystery Man. Typing Piper, who watches a lot more movies than I do. He asked Gribbs, who would win in a fight, the Spleen from Mystery Men or Stinkor from He-Man? So I'm just going to Google some images here because I don't really know who these people are. I don't like the look of the Spleen at all. At all. He's a very off-putting character. And so Stinkor, Masters of the Universe. Where the hell do you get this stuff, Typing Piper? Pretty sure Stinkor would win. He looks more buff. On the other hand, the Spleen has like a laser cannon with a backpack reservoir or something. I don't know. I'm going to go with Stinkor. All right. Overpipe Ask Gribbs. Given your prepper philosophy, are you stocking up the freezer with trout fish fillets due to meat shortages on the horizon, or have you stockpiled brown sugar Pop-Tarts given the almost Twinkie-like shelf life? What say you? Well, currently I have neither of those in my house. I I normally try to eat a few trouts at the beginning of the open season, but I didn't this year because the beginning of the season was right in the middle of the pandemic, and the place that I fished became full of COVIDiots. Is that what we're calling them now? Spreading their germs, and I couldn't maintain social distancing and still go fishing for stocked trout. I've caught a few that I probably could have, but it really requires preparation, and freezing trout fillets is not the best idea, apparently. You only get about 3 months after. This is what I've read. Now, maybe there's somebody out there with put rock salt on them or something like that. And that'd be what you would do for trout ice cream, I guess. Anyway, no, I don't have either of those. And the problem with, old Greg sent me a picture of like brown sugar Pop-Tarts popsicles or something the other night, and I was just like so tempted to go in my car to the store and buy as many of those as I could and eat them all at once. Which is why I don't really keep brown sugar Pop-Tarts in the house. I think that between the two, I would stockpile Pop-Tarts, because a trout fillet, it's basically just pure protein. Like, there's nothing else in it. And in a situation where you would need to be eating your stockpiled food, you'd need the carbs. That's my thought. Typing Piper. Ask Gribbs, which is better, 1980s Red Dawn or 2010's Remake, 1980? I mean, is the Remake ever better? Wait. I'm going to commit heresy here. sacrilege, blasphemy, whatever. The remake of the Thomas Crown Affair was better, and the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was better, and there was some other one that I thought was better. But other than that, remakes are never better. So I'm going to go with the 80s Red Dawn. I mean, the whole thing about the 80s Red Dawn was that it just had that 80s thing going on. I don't think it would make a very good movie otherwise. And as we discussed, it's not really that great of a movie to begin with. So, here we go. I love these. Ask Ribs. Would you rather fight an angry vegan feminazi or an overweight right-wing gun nut? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, does the right-wing gun nut have a gun? Because in that case, I haven't seen the remake of Cape Fear. In that case, I do not want to fight someone with a gun. If they don't have a gun, then I would rather fight the right-wing gun nut, because those folks, as I understand it, are not in very good shape. Neither am I. But I think I have known some really physically fit vegans, and I wouldn't want to fight them. There's not a lot to them. They're not really big, but they're scrappy, you know? Plus, I'm assuming the feminazi is female. Yes, tacos. Somebody give me a definition of gun nut out there. You know, give me a little more to go on. I don't think Typing Piper's here to elaborate, but if this person is a feminazi, I'm going to assume that they're female, and I wouldn't, given my choice, call me old-fashioned, I would not want to fight a female. So I'm going to go with the right-wing gun nut on this. I mean, if I'm going to look at, like, let's say the people that are protesting with the AR-15s, the lockdown, I totally get, by the way, I totally get the protest where they, I think it was in Michigan, where they, like, a barber took a chair and some clippers and started doing haircuts on the state capitol. Like, that's awesome. That's a great way to protest that issue. I don't understand why you bring your AR-15 to protest it. Like, that's two separate, what? Anyway, we've in North Carolina, we've had, our protesters are now carrying inert rocket launchers. So it's cosplay. It's like they think they're Doom Guy or something. Yeah, anyway. Howard, Ask Ribs. If you had to choose between two post-apocalyptic movies to watch, which would you choose? Mad Max 2, former policeman roaming the desert in the company of his cattle dog, Australian cattle dog, or A Boy and His Dog, libidinous 18-year-old traversing the post-apocalyptic desert in search of his telepathic dog, Blood. I'm going to go with telepathic dog. You can't go wrong with a telepathic dog. Mad Max is what it is, but anytime a dog can read your thoughts and they still like you because they're a dog, that's unconditional love. Right, I think I missed a comment. Let me see if I can bring it up. Nope, can't bring it up. All right. This is what's going to hold me back from being a professional YouTuber. When has a good idea ever needed a gun? Well, now that is Boardwalk. I think, I guess it would depend on your definition of good idea, because I've done some interesting things with guns that I thought were good ideas, but I don't think the fire marshal would look kindly on them. What? I don't know. Speaking of gun nuts, Timber Drifter, Ask Ribs. If you had to have a no weapons fight to the death in a 12-foot deep pit with no outlet, would you rather fight two emus that wanted you dead, or one adult male chimpanzee that maybe didn't want you dead but doesn't like people much? Okay, first question. It's a 12-foot deep pit with no outlet. So am I dead anyway? You know, like, is it just, like, am I just going to starve to death in this? Could I get out of it? What's on the walls of is there a ladder? Okay, and let's Google, just so I have a clear picture, adult male chimpanzee. Oh, I could totally take the chimpanzee. Yeah, oh no, yeah, not a problem. I would kick its ass. I mean, They're probably faster. They got bigger teeth. I assume it would put a pretty good hurting on me. But with the emus, there's two of them, and they're motivated. They really want me dead. So I think that just kind of a half-hearted attempt at my assassination by a chimpanzee, I could live through it. But then I'm stuck in the pit with a dead chimpanzee. So maybe I should fight the emus and hope to kill both of them and then stack them on top of each other so I can climb out of the pit. I told y'all, I'm a brilliant tactician. Okay. Next question. I should find out how people actually do live streams. Like I should watch a video about doing live streams because it's definitely excruciating for me. I assume it's excruciating for y'all too. A30-06 Ask Gribbs. You are the pilot of a 737. While ascending to 20,000 feet, you discover that the elevator is stuck at 15 degrees up and you are stuck in a 2,000 foot per minute climb. I assume that's what FPM means. What can you do to save the lives of the 120 souls in the aluminum tube behind you? I've never been on an airplane that has an elevator, so that's pretty fancy. And I don't know why it would be stuck at 15 degrees or why that would make the plane climb, but I'm joking. I would edit that out if this weren't live. What can you do? All right, this has to be a trick question because I'm sure A30-06 knows that I have no idea what he's talking about. What can you do? Could you not just turn off the engines and then glide? Is there anything in the question that prohibits that? You discover the elevator is stuck at 15 degrees up. Okay, but I guess then the question is if the elevator is stuck at 15 degrees up and you turn off the engines, are you going to have an effective glide to wherever you're going to glide to? But that would be that like not knowing anything about anything, I would just turn off the engines. And then I would get on the PA system and be like, so where did y'all think we were going? Because hope you can swim. I mean, I guess if you're over the ocean, that's the only, yeah. Although there's not really a good survival rate over the ocean, is there? But it's probably easier to glide to a landing on the ocean as opposed to like in a forest. Okay, so Sergi says, if you think you can fight a chimp, you've never seen an adult one. Yeah, but I have. I Googled imaged it. Thank you, Wyatt. I totally okay. We're gonna look up YouTube here. We're gonna look up chimpanzee fight. They're just not that big. He's pretty quick though. And this is like a chimpanzee versus chimpanzee fight. This is not like they know they're not in it for keeps. With a big stick? I don't see the stick. None of these creatures is all that intimidating to me. Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I definitely wouldn't want to fight one of these. Okay, violent chimpanzee attack. This sounds better. Do I really have to wait through this ad? Oh, yeah, okay. Right, okay, not so violent yet. Come on, I want Red Dawn level violence. But they're not Wolverines, they're chimpanzees. Okay, he's running over a branch. He's going to the other chimpanzee. And now they're just climbing around eating leaves. What the hell? All right, now I still think I could take it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to take it. Oh, God. Woman's face and hands ripped off by pet chimpanzee. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Maybe I don't want to fight the. But I mean, come on, like an emu has got to be even worse, though, right? Although we've discussed emus before, and they have the long neck. Okay, I don't want to see anything more about that. Warrior apes. Okay. All right. That does give me pause. Um, Wait, let's see if this one has any good video. Good video, as if there's like, really entertaining. Okay, here's some people talking. I want to see the chimpanzee like take on a cop. All right, all right. Emu Attack. Okay, it's a funny compilation, so it must not be that bad. Should we turn on the volume? Is that going to get me copyright struck? Cassowary. I have never heard of it. Damn! That ostrich is kicking that guy's ass. And he totally deserved it, too. What is it with people who think they can antagonize animals and then, like, not get their asses kicked? No? Okay. Give me the emus. I want to see the emus. No, I could take. No, wait, that might still be an ostrich. Hang on. I could take that down. I could take an ostrich down. Oh, here's the emu. Wait, that was it? Wait, give me the emus. I want to see horrible violence here. Like, okay. I could still take that emu down. I could. The problem with the problem with most of these videos is like the people did not expect to be attacked. They were not in a 12-foot deep pit, and their only way out was stacking animal bodies on each other. Okay, here's a guy on a bike. Is there an emu catching up with him? Maybe. Oh, oh yes, there is. I think that's an ostrich. Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
Holy shit! Oh my god!
Did you know? All right, we're done. I'm gonna go with emus now because all these people that are getting their asses kicked by these birds are fighting wrong. Like, if I were gonna fight a bird with a long neck, I would just go for its neck and hang on and like let it kick me. Like, all these people are like trying not to get kicked. Like, just get kicked. Take the bird down. Anyway, yeah. So now I will go with emus because that will definitely give me a better stackable staircase out of the pit. John Waxaroni asked Gribbs, did the human race choose special people out of their tribe or clan to go out and try out plants, tubers, mushrooms, insects, etc. in their mouth to ingest and see what happens? Or were we taught by some off-world visiting race that already had the knowledge? Here's my thing. It seems to me that in a jungle environment alone, a whole tribe could be knocked off in a month just by not knowing about one poisonous species. How did they ever figure it out, basically? When Brad and I go squirrel hunting, I'm pretty sure the squirrels that are out on the limbs, those are the stupid ones that the other squirrels like send out to cull the herd. They're like, Joe Bob's not pulling his weight. Like, hey, Joe Bob, go hang out on the limb for a minute, see what happens to you. However, I think that the motivator of hunger is powerful enough that people probably in these situations, like the first one to discover a death cap mushroom, they probably didn't care if it was going to kill them when they ate it. Or maybe they did. Maybe they were well fed on their bison steaks or whatever, and just wanted to see what would happen. But I imagine that it would only take one or two tribes members to drop dead of a horrible poisoning event like that before everyone else would be like, what did they eat in the last 24 hours? Although maybe that's giving like primitive man too much credit, but I think that I mean, I think more along the lines of like, how did we ever learn to drink cow's milk? Like, have you ever seen a cow? What the hell? And especially before vessels were invented, So you'd have to directly drink the cow's milk. Or, I mean, more accurately, you probably killed the cow and then drank the milk out of the udder. But, uh, whose idea was that? And so I think that it's got to come down to just hunger being a really powerful motivator. Um, so I imagine, like, if I was in a situation, if I was lost in the woods, the last thing I would do would be to eat a mushroom. Like the last, like I would have to know that it was going to be a certain death. It couldn't be around here because I know I could, well, I don't know I could, but I know that I would be more likely to walk out of the woods into civilization than to starve to death because I didn't eat a mushroom. So, if I was lost in the Yukon territory or something like that, and starving, I would have to be damn near delirious before I would eat a mushroom. So I would assume that's how people were before they, and people that were slightly less hungry didn't do it and saw the results. That's my guess. Kid Electrolux asked Gribbs, seeing as how you have 200 viewers for the Sunday Antisocial, why don't you change your legal name to Gribbly? 200 of us know you as Gribbly. Your son calls you dad, so no difference, and your wife is an adult, so she will get used to it. Well, have you ever changed your name? I know several people who have changed their names, and it is a really convoluted process. So that would be the first reason. I think also that it's a really disorienting thing when you change your name, that people around you don't quite know what to think of it. And we have sort of a cultural exception for when women get married and they change their last name, but it's when adults change their names, and I'll answer that in just a second, Sergi. When they change their names, it can be really weird. So yeah. Okay. Sergey just said, why can't I just want to see the chat. I just want to see the chat. There we go. Is it common for families to forage for mushrooms in the autumn in North Carolina or in the USA? I wouldn't say it's common. We as Americans generally don't like to forage for anything except at the grocery store. And even then, okay, now I want the chat to go away. Go away. Thank you. And even then, we don't forage too much past our usual aisles. So there are people out there, and I know a couple of them that like to eat wild edibles. And I just wish them well every time, because even like I would never be okay with eating a mushroom. I just never, ever. Like I could have a freaking botanist sitting there telling me this one's fine to eat, and I would still hate it because I don't like mushrooms to begin with. So again, I would rather eat wet cardboard. And I think you would probably get more sustenance out of wet cardboard. Who asked this? Oh, but is it common? No, I mean it's common. It's as common as like people who grow their own marijuana. It's about the same. So Sergi's question, Ask Gribb's question is, if you could travel anywhere in the world, no limitations, where would you go? My canned answer to this, the answer that I always throw out, is I would go. He says a single place. I don't know if this would apply, but I would go look at the path of the American advance through Europe in 44 and 45, and I don't know if that's still the case. I don't know. I do want to see those places, but I really like to go fishing too. However, any place I go, and I don't really think I'm going to go a lot of places in my life. I don't have the travel bug that some people have. Any place I go, I would want to be on my own and completely free of schedule or anything like that. I want to be able to go out and explore by myself. And so that's actually one of the main things that keeps me from doing like a tour of the World War II battlefields or whatever, is because you'd be on some schedule, and I want to be able to have my own like connection with the place. So having said that, I might actually go. I might actually go to the ancestral stomping grounds in the deep south, and if I have no limitations, I can spend like months there researching and photographing and documenting a place. I might actually do that because there's some really interesting stories there, and it is one thing that I do feel drawn to do that I'm probably never really going to get to do is just spend a whole lot of time down there. Um, Fly fish in Utah would be pretty fun though. Okay, so here's Sergey, and I hope I'm not saying this wrong. You can pronounce my name correctly in fully correct Catalan. Is that like settlers of Catalan? We're going to copy that. We're going to go ahead over here and paste it. All right, let's see how it goes. Catalan? I don't know. Is that a language? Play.
Sergi.
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 Sergi. Sergi.
Sergi. Sergi.
Sergi. Okay, Sergi. Well, I'll try to remember that. Sergi. You can always remind me as well. Sergi. Aprende a pronunciar Catalonia, right? Con nuestras guías. I don't know what that means. Chad Wayne. Sergi. Shad. Ask Gribbs. Three things. He says, we were talking about the midget chicks in bikinis. He was talking about last video. Somebody said they would rather watch my videos than girls in bikinis. And so he says, I might watch you before obese midget chicks in bikinis. But scratch that. Obese midget chicks would be hilarious. Yeah. Claiming Red Dawn is anything but great means you're going to hell because America and Jesus. Hang on. I got a comment. Well, it seems that Americans get taught more about their own history than we do in Australia. It always seems that Americans. I don't know how much you get taught in Australia, but most Americans know almost nothing about their own history. Like nothing. And I am fortunate that I had family ancestors who were literate and who were interested in documenting the family history. And I happen to have liked history enough now I wouldn't say in school because they didn't teach us anything. But as a young person, I read a lot of history, and I still would if I had time to read. Sometimes I worry I'm going to forget how to read. Like not like how to read words, but just how to enjoy a book. Because I have a book on World War I right now that I really like, but I can't make myself. Binome Joe says most American history taught in public schools is propaganda, and I would probably agree with that. Yeah, and it's typically pro-state propaganda, like pro-American propaganda. We don't talk about the terrible things that we did. Anyway, but Australia has an interesting history from what I understand, so you should definitely look into that. Although I guess it's hard to go back as far with family history, maybe. But surely not. I mean, because it's still just all derivated from Anglo people, right? I don't know. Anglanese, Anglostic, whatever. All right, finally, Ask Gribbs. Finally, Ask Gribbs. Not like finally, we're finally to the Ask, whatever. I noticed you light your pipe. Yes, it's a pipe-related channel. I forget. I noticed you light your pipe with a big lighter or a disposable lighter of some kind. Oh, right. Okay, so Sergi. Okay, we're going to get to the pipe-related question. I'm sorry. He says, don't get me wrong, it's a joke, no offense intended, but you still think it was you who helped decisively win the Second World War. As a country, yes, we do. And in the Pacific, we are correct. As an individual, I know that 4 out of 5 Germans that were killed in the war died on the Eastern Front, and that basically all we did was provide an anvil for the Russians to hammer the Germans against. And yeah, we didn't win the war in Europe. We just had enough. Roosevelt, say what you will about Roosevelt, the man was a genius in terms of geopolitics, and he set us up to be able to basically, I'm way oversimplifying here, be equal with the Russians in terms of European interests or our interests in the region. And that was his whole goal of the war in Europe. He didn't care about concentration camps. He didn't care about the British. He just wanted us to be able to, like, the Russians were always the real enemy. Well, that's not true. I mean, the Japanese were definitely a formidable enemy. Germany was not really a threat to us. It could have been, but they were too busy fighting the Russians and the British. So we basically got into it for our stake in Europe. And yeah, a lot of people, almost no one understands that. I think, though, that in the Pacific, it's a little more accurate. Our grandiose perception of our role in the Pacific is pretty accurate, except for MacArthur. Anyway, Les, I will get to that in just a second. Ask Ribs, because I got to have the pipe-related question. I was informed while lighting a pipe, this still comes from Shad, I was informed while lighting a pipe with a Zippo that I was committing an unpardonable sin, like denouncing Red Dawn, and the right way to light a pipe was with a match made of a certain type of wood. What do you know or believe about the difference it makes in what you use to light a pipe? So, this is going to be a controversial topic. Several of us who occasionally light a pipe with a Zippo will admit that it is not the cleanest way to light a pipe. You do taste and smell the lighter fluid from the Zippo. And so I would contend that a Zippo is not superior, that a butane lighter is superior in terms of the taste of the smoke. A butane lighter of any sort is going to be superior to a liquid-filled lighter. That would be what I would contend. Now, the Zippo has style points that a mini Bic does not. And I think that I mean, we're talking about Matches 860 here. He was the main Zippo guy. And if I had a daily routine that involved smoking a pipe more than one bowl, I would fill up a Zippo every morning and go about my day with it, because I think the style points are worth it. And then you have something to engrave. I've always wanted a Zippo engraved with "Trust No One," like Cancer Man from the X-Files. But my life is such that I do not get to smoke a pipe every day, much less more than once a day. I really appreciate compactness. It is impossible to find a lighter more compact than a mini Bic. It costs 99 cents or whatever. They're lightweight. And oh, see, I can't turn it off. I gotta read the. Okay, they're lightweight. They work. They don't leak unless you put them in a situation where the button is depressed. They don't leak. I can pick this up a year from now and it will still work, barring exceptions, like when it's super cold or whatever. There go. Erg 4. I think that a Bic is superior overall. Doesn't add an odor. Very small, more reliable, cheaper. So overall superior. Now, I have to agree that for those occasions when you truly want to taste the smoke, Matches is the way to go. If you can find matches made of cedar, I think that's even better. But I think that a match It does add a little bit of flavor, but it's very much a charred wood flavor, and it goes away as soon as the match is out. It's mostly just smelling the match, I think, which I find highly pleasant, much more so than smelling lighter fluid. But if you let it burn past the sulfur, and it's a cedar match, which is this is not, or you can just light a cedar strip with a different flame. That I think is the cleanest way to light tobacco of any sort. Just my opinion. And I think that you could have, I mean, this is probably some sort of bleached pine with the sulfur encased gel on the top, or however they make the head of a match. So I think you could make the case that even though it might smell better than lighter fluid, it's probably not any better for you to inhale than lighter fluid. But if I have my preference, and the only thing I'm concerned about is the taste of the smoke, it's always matches. However, that's a rare situation too, because then I gotta do something with the match. You gotta have an ashtray of some sort. If I'm out in the woods, I never have matches because I don't want to be littering, even wooden matchsticks. So I always have one of these because they're more compact and more reliable. There's a multitude of factors that go into this very philosophical question. All right, Les asked pipe-related questions. Yeah, okay. What do I think of George Patton? So quotable. The most quotable man, other than like Quentin Tarantino characters. He was a better general than MacArthur. He was probably a more talented individual than MacArthur. MacArthur's main problem was his own narcissism, couldn't get out of his own way. Patton had a healthy dose of that, but did actually lead some successful campaigns, and obviously MacArthur did too after he bailed. I really have a distaste for MacArthur because of the Korean War. However, Patton had bloodlust, as many top generals do, and MacArthur did as well. And we forget people like Omar Bradley that just weren't that they weren't that bombastic. He was just a good general, and should have been. Thank you, Peter. Happy Memorial Day. Should have been a much bigger celebrity than he was. Most people don't know who Omar Bradley was, so I don't know. And then there was also McAuliffe, Nuts McAuliffe. He's kind of my favorite, just because of that story. Are we getting to the end of our questions? No way. Well, I guess we have been going an hour. Okay. Patton wanted to rearm Germany and push Russia back to Moscow. See, I've also heard that MacArthur wanted to declare war on Russia from the Pacific, and I think both of them were tempered by their superiors, Eisenhower being Patton's, and Roosevelt or Truman at that point being MacArthur's. I'm losing it. I need more coffee. I think that both of them were tempered, by their superiors, and years ago, I would have said maybe that was to the detriment of the well-being of the world, but I'm not so sure now. I'm not so sure. I think that had there not been two opposing superpowers, like if we had gone in and wiped Russia out, we already had the bomb, we would have used it since then. We would have used it on whatever, certainly in Iraq or something like Vietnam. Not that we would have gone to war in Vietnam if it hadn't been for the Russians, but in like regional skirmishes like that, we would have ended up using nuclear weapons, and by this point in the world's history, someone else would have them, and it would just be normalized to use them in war. So, I don't know. I think you can make a case. You can make a case for either Patton or MacArthur's views for just going through and mopping up Stalin, because we probably could have done it, and it would have certainly been more convenient in the short term. Boca to Boynton. Ask Gribbs. Since bots have a lot of friends, do they have a soul? And how do they differ from politicians? I'm assuming you're talking about like Twitter bots. By the way, did y'all know that like half of the information on Twitter about COVID-19 is from bots? Or half the agitation, I believe, like the political back and forth, is from bots. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Mr. Putin. Yeah. So I assume you're talking about like online influencer bots and not like first-person shooter game bots. Anyway, do they have a soul? What has a soul? Where do you draw the line? Because a bot is not more intelligent in and of itself than, say, a chicken. A chicken is much more able to, a bot just exists online. A chicken actually has to interface with the world and move around and have motor skills, and a bot just exists to post things on Twitter. Or if you just mean a robot, I mean, I guess you can make some pretty super intelligent robots, but your average robot is still like very purpose driven. The robots that I've met have been like, okay, your job is to take the carton of milk and put a sticker on it. Like, that's all you know. So I think you would make less of an argument that something like that has a soul than you could something like a chicken has a soul. So does a chicken have a soul? If a chicken doesn't have a soul, how high up the evolutionary ladder do you need to be before you get a soul? What is a soul? I don't know. I think, though, that there probably is a point at which consciousness is reached, and probably a soul and consciousness are the same thing. Probably. I don't know. And I think from what I have learned of neuroscience and from what I've been told by people that know a lot about it, consciousness is very much an emergent phenomenon. We don't know why it happens. It just happens when when certain conditions are met. And so I don't see why those conditions couldn't be met by a robot or artificial intelligence of some sort. And so at that point, you do have to ask yourself, is this thing a thinking, living being with, rights? And probably, yeah. Brad and I were once talking. He said that he thinks that people that hunt elephants are coming very close to murder because elephants have a concept of death. And so, if you go out and you hunt a deer doesn't really know what death is. But elephants, well, John Waxaroni is with us, and he says when an entity is scared to die, they have a soul. If they do not care about death at all, they are soulless. So there you go. An elephant is actually scared of death, not just the pain associated with it, or I don't know if it's scared of it. It has an appreciation for death. They have rituals with dead elephants. They bury each other basically anyway. They go to the funeral home, buy a nice mahogany casket. A big casket like that costs a lot of money. All right, so accepting in theory that bots could have a soul if they were far enough advanced, how do they differ from politicians? Well, a bot might not necessarily be motivated by power, and a politician is. A politician is more single-minded than many robots because all they want to do is amass power, and that still doesn't mean that they don't have a soul, though, because a politician could definitely be afraid of dying. Although if they're narcissistic enough, they don't think they ever will. A bit cannot be irrational. That's part of being aware of oneself. A bot cannot be irrational. Okay. Politicians can definitely be irrational. Okay, so I think we've established politicians have souls. They just use them very poorly. How about that? Our last question, unless y'all have more, you can keep this going as long as you want, is from is from Typing Piper, who really, man, the zombie lake thing really caught on last week. Typing Piper asked Ribs, considering you like Zombie Lake and Max, those were the two movies that I mentioned. Who were you rooting for in World War II? Come on. By the way, The Post is the best Nazi zombie movie ever made. Blah, 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 whatever. Okay, I'll check it out. Who were you rooting for in World War II? The reason I like Nazi zombies is because the only thing better than killing a Nazi is killing him twice. So I was definitely rooting for the Allies. Although then you got to say you were rooting for Stalin. So that's tough. But not the Germans. Although I do have a lot of respect for the average German soldier, as I respect any soldier anywhere. I think the Einsatzgruppen, is that how you say that? No. German is the only language I use an accent with, and I think it's just because I have read enough of it that I know a little bit about its pronunciation. Einsatzgruppen. The death squads, Einsatzgruppen. Those guys, no, they don't have souls. They are death robots, and I don't respect them. But like, your average Wehrmacht infantry dude, like he's just a soldier, And so I think that there's a little bit of a vilification on the part of the Allies of the Germans, not of the Nazis. And if you have read enough to kind of understand the difference, yeah, the Germans were total racists. So was everybody else in Europe, and so were we at the same time. So it's harder to hold Nazism against the Germans as a whole. You can, and you definitely can, in the same way that you can hold Trumpism against Americans as a whole. But there are members of the party, and there are just average people. And so while I would not root for the Allies, I don't also want to demonize every single German out there. Or while I would not root for the Germans, excuse me, while I was certainly in favor of the Allies when I was, when I was negative 60 back then, you got to be careful demonizing any group based on its nationality or whatever. The Einsatzgruppen and the SS and all that, yeah, you can demonize the hell out of them. Mobile killing squads. But yeah, you know how some people, we're getting off into the weeds. I'm not seeing anyone asking more Ask Ribs questions, which means this video is going to come to an end fairly soon. So just so you know. It always drove me nuts how Obama would say Pakistan. Like, dude, you're not from Pakistan. You're from America. Just say it like an American. Like, why should we adopt the accents of people whose countries we're talking about? And it's a big thing with NPR. When you listen to NPR, they're always talking about, someone in Peru or Colombia, and I'm just like, dude, you're like, what? But I have noticed that I do it myself when I'm talking about German things, and I bet that's just because I have more of an education on how. I did take German for about a week in college before I dropped the course to ask Justin Trudeau. What about Justin Trudeau? Anyway, I took German, and then I realized that there was just no way I could do it, so I dropped out and took Spanish. Okay, Les is saying something about Obama. Oh, does Justin Trudeau do that? Pakistan, Afghanistan, yeah. I don't know what he was thinking. I'm sure he had advisors tell him the right way to say things or whatever. But man, I mean, part of being an American is just that you don't give a shit what the rest of the world thinks, So just say it how you want to say it. I don't know. But this tobacco, John Coton, no, is growing on me quite a bit. I'm not getting the Perique like wooziness this time, so that's good. Established 1770. Damn. Really? That's some old tobacco. Wait. Justin Trudeau dresses in native attire? Oh, wait. I think I might know it. Let's see. Justin Trudeau, India. Ouch. Oh, it's so cringy. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, the pipe. I never ID'd the pipe. The pipe is a Missouri Meerschaum hardwood, and this one was custom rusticated by half and half with sage. So normally when you get these, they're a very smooth pipe that is pretty much unremarkable. But this was a gift from Amy Mack, who I don't think even watches my videos anymore, but that's fine. She gave me a bunch of cool pipes. Um, yeah, dressing in this Indian attire is it's one thing, when you're in a synagogue to wear a skull cap or to wear just enough of whatever ritual clothing is necessary to show respect. But this is pretty cringy. In the same way that Joe Biden's thing this week, if you're not voting or if you're not voting for me against Trump, then you're not black. Like, oh my God, please drop out and let's appoint a bot to run. I would vote for a bot. Anyway, Peter says federal government has always been drunk with power, seems to have affected local government as well. Do you feel we are being held hostage in our own home states? Not yet. Um, I I feel that what has happened thus far has actually stopped short of the amount of response we should have taken to the pandemic in terms of locking things down. Um, I wish we had had a more stringent lockdown for the same amount of time. Um, because basically here, I mean, things were not all that locked down. Now maybe it's different other places, but you could still go to the store. You couldn't go to a restaurant. You couldn't go into a store that just sold beanie weenies. No, I'm sorry, beanie babies. You couldn't just go buy a beanie baby. However, if you were in a store that had a deli counter and sold beanie babies and also sold one single item of clothing, you could do both those things. You could buy trivial merchandise and you could get to go food as long as that store had clothing because that was essential. So I wish there had been a smarter um, Criblo 456 says the response in New Mexico and Gallup was pretty severe, and it was. I agree. We had one county in North Carolina did that, and they were one of the last to get a case of the virus. They have no hospital in that county, so they literally block the roads. And I kind of think that's a little much for society at large, though. If if you live in a remote county and you can do that, more power to you. But I think that I wish that society at large had gone a little farther for the same amount of time to really stop the virus in its tracks. But like we're still, I mean, yesterday was our single largest new cases day in North Carolina. So I don't think we really did anything. I think it was all for nothing. We didn't go far enough. It was a half measure. Is the proper thing now to open back up? Probably so. Probably so. I'm not going to be opening because my business involves gatherings of 100 plus people. So that's still not in the works if the market even ever returns for that. The issue, I think, with indefinite closure is you do start to run into do people not have a right to run a business? And yeah, I think they do. So I don't know. I don't know. However, we've done a terrible job at containing this virus. So it just sucks all the way around. It just none of it did any good. I think there will probably be more lockdowns. I think that at a certain point, once you lock down schools, you better lock down everything else because parents can't take care of their kids and go to work. So once, it's easy to say, well, just close schools, but there's plenty of people out there that's basically like you're basically taking them out of the workforce when you do that. So I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to make these decisions. And really, I don't even have to abide by them. Not that it matters. John says you can't run a business if you're dead. That is very true as well. I would like to see, okay, my ideal world. My ideal world is no government restrictions, but everyone acts responsibly. That's not going to happen. As I mentioned earlier, there's pictures of people downtown right now, like partying and not social distancing, and they're risking their lives to go drink beer at our fancy craft breweries. Whatever, that's their business, but there's nothing I can do about it. But I think that's why we can't depend on personal responsibility. I mean, half the population doesn't believe the virus exists, and then a significant part thinks that masks are some sort of conspiracy to make us all act the same or something like that. And that's, again, I've always said, dismiss conspiracy theories at your own peril. So I can see that. I can see that. A lot of people are complaining about the opening dates being pushed back further and further right at the last minute, particularly business owners. I could really use some business right now. It would be really nice to have a big old fat wedding this weekend. But I would be wearing a mask if I went to it, and so would everyone else. Like, it wouldn't be very fun for the people getting married, even if there were no restrictions. So what do you do? I mean, it's a global disaster. It's a pandemic. These are tough times. Anyway, keep up with your Ask Grips questions if you want me to stick around. I do have other stuff I really ought to do. I am working on a secret project that I'm not going to tell you guys about yet, because I always tell you about my projects way too early, and then like nothing happens on them for a year. But I kind of want to go work on it. Let's see if there's any new comments on the YouTubes. I'm not getting a notification of them. Yeah, open everything up. That's one way of population control. I agree. I mean, and it, from an evolutionary standpoint, it's going to kill off the old people, right? So better than the Spanish flu, which killed off young people. And that is a horrible, horrible thing to say, and I really wish I hadn't said it. I mean, but it's true. It's one of those things that's like, this would be the first time in history. Let me back up. Let me just be clear, because someday this will come back to haunt me if I'm not clear on this. Let me back up. I support lockdowns. I support mask wearing and taking super precautions and whatever. I support all of that. However, that stuff has to be done with the idea that you're actually doing something, that you're getting more testing online, that you're developing a vaccine, that you're whatever. And I think we are trying to develop a vaccine, but it's going to be 18 months out. We didn't do shit with the testing. You still can't get tested here. Like, you have to be hospitalized displaying symptoms before you can get a test. So I think that if we lived up to all the shit that we're saying about how we're protecting people, we'd be the first society in history to do that. And because, I mean, think about it, like every other pandemic, people just die. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, 1960s might be the exception to that. And of course, the things that have happened in this century, MERS and SARS and all that. But the plague, the Justinian plagues, this would be the first time in history we ever altered the course of a pandemic, is what I'm trying to say. And so evolutionarily, super broad scope, better a pandemic kill old people than young people. That's what I meant to say. I do not believe we should sacrifice our old people to COVID-19. It's not what I'm saying. All right, now I think I've covered all my bases on that. I hope YouTube doesn't shut me down. Someone said something. Just show me the chat. Show me the chat. Thank you. Yeah, 95% of deaths in Canada are from long-term healthcare facilities, and that is happening here too. That our caseload, let me check it. Our caseload in our county quietly, very quietly, more than doubled in the past 10 days or so. And mostly because it got into some long-term care facilities. And again, something I haven't talked about on this channel because, yeah, okay, yeah, we're still up, but not as much as we could be. The county next to us is way up, way ahead of us, and they're a smaller county. Anyway, my at the beginning of all of this, back in early April, my mom's husband fell and broke his femur, and so he spent obviously a lot of time in the hospital, and then went to a rehab facility for a while, and there was talk of him going to a nursing home, and until he healed up, because it's very hard to rehabilitate an 85-year-old man from a broken femur at home. And the doctors wanted to send him to a nursing home, and my mom and he would have been on board with that had the surgeon not said, no matter what you do not go to a nursing home. And so they decided to come home, and it was very tough. It's still very tough. And they were regretting their decision. And then these outbreaks started in all the nursing homes around here, and now they're very much not regretting their decision. So it's a pretty sobering thing to know someone who just barely dodged that bullet. Because even if you're in the nursing home and you don't get it, you get locked down. You can't go anywhere. So, for him, he's not at death's door or anything. He just needs some time to rehabilitate. Yeah, that would be terrible. Chat. I don't want to make this decision every time, YouTube. Show me the chat. Okay. So Peter says, I don't think COVID is as contagious as it was originally foretold. I disagree with you there. I think it's way more contagious than they said in the very beginning. When it was still mostly in Wuhan, and everyone said it was going to be totally contained. That was before we learned about the asymptomatic carriers. And so whether or not it's as contagious as we thought it was at the height of, April, basically, well, early May, because I remember thinking, okay, I remember reading stuff and thinking, okay, this is more contagious than measles. But I don't think it is now. So it's less contagious than that, but it could always mutate. That'd be fun. And then there was another comment. I have to go through the same little thing. John says, I believe whatever disaster overcomes us, the truth is we, the masses, will always be on our own. Yeah. Yeah, government's full of shit. They're not doing anything. Crazy right-wing libertarian types said that for years and no one listened. But the idea, yeah. I mean, in countries where they have done well, I think you could probably make the case that it was better for them to have had a government in this situation. And again, I think it was only 2 weeks ago someone accused me of being an anarchist or whatever. But if you look at South Korea, yes, there was a tremendous, pointed, immediate response from the government, and yes, it probably has saved thousands and thousands of lives, as opposed to the U.S., where the government basically pretended there wasn't a problem until it was too late. So, I don't know. I mean, it's always the same thing. What are you going to do about it? So I think that brings us. To the end of our 1 hour and 24-minute live antisocial, which is still probably less time than I normally spend on antisocial by the time I edit it and record everything. So I hope you all are well and safe. I'm not seeing any more questions popping up here. And I hope you have an excellent week. It is Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day is have a meaningful Memorial Day, and don't go downtown and drink beer. At least not in my town. You want to do it in your town, that's fine. Don't come do it in my town. These people are going to kill us all. Yeah. be careful out there. Thank you for watching, as always, and keep the ends out for the ties that bind. That totally felt like a professional ending, didn't it? How do I close this? Save, highlight, close. Wait. Is that a question? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Les and Peter and everybody else. See y'all soon.